We care about normal human movement patterns and making them stronger. We care about squatting down and standing back up. That's what your knees and hips are for, right? We care about picking things up off the ground. That's what your knees and your hips and your arms are for, and your hands, right? We care about pushing stuff up over your head. That's what your shoulders and arms and traps are for. We care about pushing things away from you. That's what your pecs are for, right? But if we concern ourselves with those movement patterns and how to get them strong, then what happens to all of the muscle groups that form the kinetic chains of all of those exercises? They all get bigger and stronger. We are concerned with movement patterns here because we're not doing bodybuilding, we're doing strength training. Okay? And as a result of that, our approach is quite a bit simpler. If I'm going to make my squat go up 5 pounds every workout, every muscle that's involved in the squat has to get stronger every time I train it because I'm going to load it with 5 more pounds. And how does it respond? Well, it adapts, and how does it adapt?
It's bigger.
It gets bigger. It gets bigger. All of that muscle mass grows because there's no other mechanism by which it can get stronger. If we're going to make a muscle stronger, it's got to get bigger. All right? All this neuromuscular efficiency bullshit all takes place as the thing is growing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to come up with a set of criteria to help us decide what it is we're going to do. We know we're going to do barbells. And the reason we know we're going to do barbells is because it has been everyone's experience since the dawn of time that if you lift weights, if you squat, you deadlift, you bench press, you press, and you go up in weight, that everybody gets stronger and everybody gets bigger. I don't care what the exercise science literature says. The phenomenology is different. If the literature does not agree with the phenomenology, then the literature is wrong. Right? Everybody understands this? Right? If what we see happening is not explained by your explanation, then your explanation is wrong, because we see this happening. Okay? And those of us that have been in this business for a very long time have observed for decades that when we put people on squats, deadlifts, presses, benches, the Olympic lifts, they get bigger and they get stronger. And it starts to happen immediately, and it can happen for years and years and years. Right? How long can you make your leg extension go up?
A couple weeks.
Oh, that's 6 weeks maybe. How long can you make your deadlift go up?
Years. How long you got?
See, this isn't complicated, right? So that's why we deadlift and squat and press and bench, because we can make those lifts go up and up and up and up and continue to use them to get stronger, whereas isolation exercises don't behave that way. They never do behave that way. All right? And if they don't behave that way, let's not waste a bunch of time doing them, okay? This is real simple, all right? We are going to do the exercises that we can train, and we're not going to do anything that we can't train. And this is especially true for the first 9 months that you're training. Now, if you have been doing this 15 or 20 years and you want to work on your triceps a little bit, go ahead. But if I've got a kid that walks in the gym and he wants to pay me for my time, then I'm kind of morally responsible for not wasting his money. So I'm not going to have him do any triceps because he doesn't need to do triceps. He just needs to get his press and his bench up. He needs to do some chins, maybe. But what happens to a kid's arms when his deadlift goes from 2 1/4 to 495? Well, I mean, what's been your experience with this? They get bigger. They always get bigger. Because the whole kid is growing. Right? If the kid is growing, the kid's arms are growing too. All right, now if he wants to do some barbell curls a couple of times a week, I don't care if he wants to do that. That's fine. But he has to do them after he gets through training. Okay, so the emphasis has to be on that which will make us the most return on our investment of time and money. So that's why we use the barbell exercises, all right? And we use the barbell exercises in very specific ways that everybody always wants to argue with us about, all right? So we're going to go through the squat this morning, and we're going to show you why we squat the way we squat, which is different than the way everybody else wants to squat, because everybody else that squats is doing quads. And we don't care about your quads. We care about your squat. All right? We want to squat in a way that allows you to lift the greatest amount of weight over the longest effective range of motion so that you can lift the most weight in the squat and thus get stronger. So those are our criteria. Greatest amount of muscle mass. We're going to squat in a way that uses the greatest amount of muscle mass. Because it would be better to use more muscles than less muscles, right? If we're trying to get the most training effect out of the exercise. We're going to squat in a way that uses more muscle. This is why we squat instead of front squat. We're going to go into excruciating detail on this in just a minute. All right? And it's intuitively obvious to most everybody that it's better to use more muscle mass than less muscle. Would anybody argue otherwise? Okay? And then we're going to squat over the longest effective range of motion. Now, why do I qualify that by saying effective range of motion?
If you can increase the range of motion, it can be
Because there's a point of
ineffective.
increased return.
Yeah. Is there a way to squat over too long a range of motion?
Ass grass.
Yeah. What's wrong with ass to grass? I thought that's harder. Well, it is harder.
Hamstrings loosen up, so you stop using them after you get to that point.
Actually, they don't.
A little bit.
And we're going to explain to you why the hamstrings are not part of that equation during the course of this discussion this morning. It's not the hamstrings. It's everything else, but it's not the hamstrings. All right? But the point is, if you squat 8 inches below parallel, you have to relax some things to get down that deep. And we're not here for relaxation, are we? Right? What are we here to do? Get strong. Lift heavier weights. Can you lift more weight 1 inch below parallel or 8 inches below parallel?
1 inch.
So let's squat 1 inch below parallel. Why don't we squat 3 inches above parallel? That's more weight than 1 inch below parallel, right?
That's the longest effective.
Because we want the longest effective range of motion, and if we cut the squats off like they do in the APF, then we don't train as much muscle mass over the longest range of motion that muscle mass can operate. We want to use it as long as we can make it operate, but not so long that we have to relax some of it to increase the range of motion. Does everybody understand that? Why we don't squat 8 inches above parallel with our feet like this, looking up at the ceiling? with a $700 squat suit on, 3-meter wraps around our knee, springs embedded in the fabric of the wraps behind our knee. We want to lift heavy, the heaviest weights we can, but we want to do it having satisfied those first 2 criteria. Because it's better to squat 405 than it is to squat 315, right? Because of what we're trying to do. Because always remember, what is strength? It's quite directly measured by how much weight you can lift, right? So if we satisfy the first 2 criteria and lift the heaviest weights we can lift, then that satisfies what we're trying to do. We're not trying to do quads, we're trying to squat, right?